the more you push out a ship by date, or the more you push out a date that people are gonna get the product by, I think we've had some really cool eye openings from that.
It's like, one, there's X amount of units that we're gonna sell. If you want it now, you gotta pre-order it, because when it actually does launch, chances are it'll probably be out of stock by then. And so by doing this, you're generating the hype. I fully believe we probably got more sales just by doing this than anything. And to Ron's point is that we're selling through the inventory before we even get it.
Welcome back to another episode of Chew on This SubSummit series. So a lot of what we talk about on our episodes is what we've been going through building Obvi, to this year doing a little over 30 million in revenue, and in the past 5 years doing a little over 80 million in revenue. And some of those things, although look like great vanity numbers, means there's also some stories behind the ups and downs of it. And today's episode, what we're going to get into is from hell to heaven, what we've gone through in the last 2 years, which I think a lot of you can probably relate to, but also can find some of the learnings that we had from our mistakes, and also some of the successes that came out of our mistakes. So without further ado, I think what we're going to talk about is kind of setting the stage. And I think I can kick that piece off, which is 2 years ago when, you had a lot of different struggles come about, right? You had post-pandemic, you had iOS changes happening, and overall building a business just became harder. It kind of felt like it was overnight, right? It was like things were going really, really smooth. And then overnight, we kind of felt this like just pain or this trouble that became ads were more difficult. We were having cash flow troubles. Ordering inventory was a nightmare. Even just talking to retailers and making things work just became more and more difficult. And I think we had probably I'm hoping our toughest years behind us, but we kind of broke down this episode with all the different areas that we struggled with, whether it's manufacturing, even branding and design, performance, cash flow, inventory troubles, etc. So we're kind of going to go into each one, but I think maybe to start things off, you want to kick off kind of just where marketing and performance put us, and where your head was wrapped into during that time.
Absolutely. So Ash, one of the co-founders and CMO, for the longest time and even till date, I'm still running our Facebook ads. I'm in the ad manager even right now. And it's like one of those things where pre-iOS 14, it feels so long ago, but you still feel the impacts of it. Where before you can feed Meta, $1 and get out $3. And in today's climate, you're lucky to just break even or get a one-on-one return, right? And so pre-update, it was one of those things where you're also during COVID, everybody's getting stimulus checks. There's kind of money being pumped into the economy, and you're riding this high. And you're just like, all right, let's double the budget, and people are still spending and money's coming in, and then overnight, Meta loses 50% of the data, right, from Apple users, and it honestly it forced marketers to be real marketers. It made me realize I was never testing enough in terms of creating ad concepts, landing page optimization, offer creation. None of these things were on our daily chats. We used to test maybe 3 or 4 creatives a month and call it a day, because at that time 3 or 4 creatives is all you needed. And like I said, it forced people to become better marketers, and it really forced us to focus on 3 core things, which I think is very important for brands today, which is going to be content, CRO, and organic visibility. Right? With the rise of TikTok and Reels and actually getting a social presence, it's a lot easier nowadays, but it's very crucial that you do it right. Let's maybe talk about creative, right? Internally, I know that me and you maybe had conversations every couple months of, all right, ads are kind of slowing down, let's get 3 or 4 more.
Yeah.
And now the conversation is, how do we get 30 to 50 a week?
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think where brands can get started there. 30 to 50 a week sounds like a lot, but what really goes into it is having the data from your customers There's a few key points and elements to really know this. Post-purchase surveys, reviews, ad comments. You should be looking at these on a weekly basis, just to understand why somebody's buying the product. Any competitors that they were maybe considering before purchasing you. Looking at the ad comments and seeing some of the questions that are coming up there, and allowing you to create some type of creative strategy. You don't need to be a designer or a creative strategist. All you need to do is see what conversations are happening in your ecosystem, and try and turn those into ads, right? So like I said, we're running 30 to 50 creatives, and creative diversity is the biggest thing right now. Whereas maybe before, I know a lot of people started to maybe over-index on UGC ads, right? Because that was what was doing really well. TikTok was blowing up. You wanted to get a creator, send them a brief, send them the product, and they'd come up with a TikTok-style video. That's just like one piece of the puzzle. And what we also realized is that we were over-indexing on just that. And we thought that was going to solve our issues. And so hired a bunch of creators, sent them briefs, hired video editors on video editors to just pump out different videos. And then you start to realize, well, what about the image ads? Why are we not using that? And there was this graph that our Meta rep sent us, which is, it's like 4 quadrants, right? So each quadrant you have at the top, you have static images, and then you have video ads at the bottom. And then you have on the right side, low quality, lo-fi, and on the other side, you have high quality, polished, videos and static ads. So what I would urge everybody to do now is go back and see the ads in your ad account and plot where each one is. And you'll find where you're over indexing. And so for us, it was these video, low quality UGC, and we left these other 3 completely wide open. And today, and honestly, over the last couple of months, even Meta just had their performance summit, and their number one factor to running great ads is to have creative diversity. So if you're not filling in the gaps, you're gonna miss out on a lot. So that's been a lot of our strategy moving forward in terms of creative. There's just getting a bunch of statics, getting a bunch of videos, high quality, low quality, and then just differentiating our messaging, right? I feel like a lot of people typically will go for that low hanging fruit of problem aware, solution aware, but what about the people that are problem unaware, solution unaware, and really trying to go for that top of funnel approach? I feel like for marketers, everybody's trying to go for the low hanging fruit because it's the easiest, but that's not what's going to scale a brand. You need to drive new eyeballs to the brand, and that kind of leads me to organic visibility. Luckily, we've cultivated this Facebook community over the last 5 years, and we've now almost hit 100,000 members. But that's like the core nucleus of people will invite their friends, people will tag people in comments of conversations that are happening, and it allows us to introduce top of funnel eyeballs to the brand that's not just generated through Meta. Think about it. Meta CPMs they're not cheap. They're talking 20 to 30, even sometimes $50 to reach people. You want to get as many eyeballs of the brand as cheap as possible. And that's one of the biggest things that we started focusing on this year and saying, you know what, Meta's great. It's going to amplify our business, but it's not going to drive awareness. So how do we do that? Community, influencers, creators. Over the last 6 months, we've sent out 2,000 care packages to influencers just so that we can actually get more visibility and tap into other audiences at a cheap CPM instead of just relying on Meta, And so that content, organic visibility, and CRO. There was a conversation I had with the founder last night at our event, and the question was, we've projected our CAC to increase 20% every month over the next 2 to 5 years. And he's like, how do you offset that? How do you, what do you do? Do you just improve LTV? And I said, well, what if you just improve your conversion rate 20%? And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, you're right. I could just improve here and there. And so one of the biggest things that people think is CRO is so complicated. It really isn't. Some of the lowest hanging fruit that you can do is, like I said, you're doing research into what your consumers are talking about, what they're saying, what they care about. Start taking some of that knowledge and applying it to A/B testing different headlines on your websites, on your landing pages. I think a lot of people try to focus on, well, what structure does it look like? Should I move this over here, this over here, this over there? Sure, you'll get a little bit of boost, but how do you connect with people? What is the messaging that actually resonates? people resonate with imagery and copy. So when you go back and look at your landing pages, your product pages, find the main, headline that you're pushing right now, and just A/B test something else. And sometimes these swings can get you those 20% improvements, so you don't have to worry about CAC going up 20%. You've already offset it. And if you can increase conversion rate at a higher rate that CAC increases, you're in the money. So I think those three are the core pillars that honestly has taken us 5 years to really perfect. And it's embarrassing to say that we weren't doing any of that until the last 18 months. And we were honestly, it felt like we were just getting lucky with how things were. So it's forced myself to become a better marketer and look at things differently. And hopefully that's something that you guys can kind of relate to and take back and implement in your guys' businesses.
Yeah, I think and to touch more on that piece is just like the where brands are being built today and who the consumers are and how brands are being built, period, I think is completely different. If not, it's like a 180 shift compared to what it was 2 years ago. So I think even just, I think you mentioned it on your panel earlier today. It was like brands are ever evolving, right? And it's like, it's so true. And I want to pivot that conversation to a little bit about like brand positioning and identity crisis that we kind of had, which was when we set out, our initial goal with Obvi was we're this women's health and wellness brand, overarching brand that is, taking collagen, making it fun and exciting. And I think as we went on, we got as far away from that with different products that we would release that didn't tie into collagen or didn't tie into health and wellness that much, or we'd come out with gummy vitamins because, we liked the taste of it. Like there were things that just it started to not make sense, but we could do it because we had free cash flow and we felt the need for it. So maybe talk a little bit about how we got away from that brand positioning and then how we re-engineered that identity crisis to where we are today.
Yeah. We had a major brand identity crisis when all this started happening. And it's crazy because I think we were getting lucky in the beginning. We designed some packaging that was pink and it was loud and it was cool. But there was really no brand story behind it. And there was no real reason why the packaging looked like it did. We ended up going through multiple iterations of the packaging and just the brand in general, trying to pinpoint what the consumers actually wanted. I think we tried to make it a super high quality, almost luxe look at one point, and then we toned it way back down. And we ended up finding this happy medium eventually. But that just goes back to creative testing. And now pair that with the products that we were coming out with. I think at one point our entire website looked like a drop shipping store. And it was gross because we had all these different things. Like we had like a sexual wellness product and we had collagen here and like a nootropic. Nothing really. Yeah, protein bars. Oh my God, protein bars. Fucking just
Collagen water.
nonsense. Water. Yeah. No, there was we came out with a lot, and I think we went about it way too quickly. And then we had a talk, and we wanted to do a Skew Rationalization, and it took time. I think it took like over a year to really get to where we are now, where we feel like we have a really solid product line, and solid products coming. But to get rid of a lot of that inventory, it's a pain. Like you're gonna take a loss. But in the long run, it ended up being exactly what we needed. We brought the brand back to our core kind of offering, which was collagen. And we started putting collagen in a lot of other functional supplements. And the community resonated with that. They wanted that. That's why they followed us. That's why they were behind us. And we got away from it, seeing all these different trends, trying to hop on every trend. And then eventually we were able to rationalize those SKUs, and now we are where we are.
I really like that you mentioned the SKU rationalization piece, because I think that was a really fun exercise, right? Where it was took a spreadsheet, literally listed every SKU, column 1. Column 2 was literally list out the revenue that's come from those SKUs. Column 3 was the cost to make that product. Column 4 was like the cost to actually sell this product, right? Like the cost to acquire customers. and you start to actually put pen to paper.
Oh.
And reviews, you're right. Yeah, and reviews. And you start to put pen to paper, and you're like, wait, I'm married to these random products of mine for no reason. And although it is a tough process, a long process, and we'll get into some of the inventory management and how we went through that and financial management, but I think the number one step is kind of coming true to yourself and being like, hey, these don't make sense. I think all of us had a few of our favorites, and it was like, all right, we kind of have to let the babies go.
Yeah. I think there's a pretty big problem that people think is going to happen of like, oh, you might have like angry customers like, oh, this was my favorite product, why are you getting rid of it? And one of the things that we tell even our like customer service agents is think about how many customers you truly have, whether it's 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is, and you have one person complaining. Sure, it's going to hurt, it's going to sting, you're going to think that you made a wrong decision of removing something, but in the grand scheme of things, mapping it out and saying, okay, well, if this product is like only generating 1% of revenue, is it even worth our time to even like get it and market it and put focus on it? Rip the Band-Aid. That's all we have to say is like, we were always like, oh, if we're going to get rid of this, like we had a kids protein at one point, and somebody made a comment 5 years later since we discontinued it saying like, what happened to the kids protein? And it's like, well, if you haven't bought in 5 years, was it really like top of mind for anybody? And it made me feel better about the decision we made, but rip the Band-Aid. Sometimes it's not even necessary.
Yeah. And I think even when we were formulating our collagen that went into Walmart and Rite Aid, I formulated it to make it the best product out there. I put a lot of stuff in there like hyaluronic acid, keratin, vitamin C, aloe, and all this stuff that I didn't even ask our consumers about. And what we ended up realizing is they don't really care about any of that stuff. They care about the collagen. So we had to tone it back. So I think it was a lot of stuff like obviously rationalizing SKUs, but even the formulas that we were making, we really had to dive deep into what we were offering those consumers. And even when we create products now, it's not just me, whipping something up. I run it by you guys now. And it's like, we literally look at that product and we don't order, 10,000 units of anything anymore. We'll order 500 to 1,000, test it, see what comes back. I think we released Burn PM and Fast last month. Great product, sold out within the first 2 weeks. And we still haven't placed a huge PO for it because we want to do months and months of testing before we commit to that.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because now for us, we're also trying to evolve what our top of funnel strategy looks like, right? For us, and I think for everybody, the name of the game is AOV, right? The brand that can spend the most to acquire a customer, still break even profitable, is going to be the one that wins. And the best way to do that is to increase AOV. And one of the struggles that we're going through right now in terms of acquisition leading into retention is acquiring customers to buy 3 or 6 months worth of our product. And we're basically realizing LTV right there and then, right? So the trade-off is higher AOV, profitable on the first order, but you don't see them for another 3 to 6 months because they're obviously going to be taking the product. And so the strategy is trying to shift into, can we launch 2 additional products? So to set the scene here, our top selling product is a collagen infused fat burner. Really good for energy, curbing appetite, boosting metabolism, and you have the beauty benefits with it. We launched 2 SKUs to kind of complement each other, where you have a burn fast, which mimics the effects of fasting. So focus, mood, and then burn PM, which is a nighttime sleep aid / boosted metabolism, beauty benefits. If I can sell 30 days worth of product of 3 products, they're coming back every 30 days, but that AOV is $100. Instead of me selling 3 months, 6 months out of a time, I can get 30 days. They're trying 3 different products, and maybe they can come back, 30 days from now and maybe buy the one that they liked or the 2 that they liked or maybe all 3. So thinking about how you tackle top of funnel really funnels down also to what your retention strategy looks like. And at the end of the day, it comes down to product development and really refining what that looks like. Absolutely.
That was all great points. I think we can use this part of like talking about product and inventory to talk a little bit about our supply chain nightmares that we went through. And I'm sure everyone who's had a brand in the last few years have gone through their own set of nightmares. But ours was a little bit interesting because we'd have times where we'd be overstocked with product, and then we'd have times where we're like, we don't have enough, right? And so I think in both scenarios, we can talk about a little bit about what we did. I think from overstocked, and we can start there, right? I think we really leveraged Amazon as a place where, you know what, we're going to actually make things exclusively available on Amazon and not on our website to drive critical demand from our community and our brand to tell people, hey, these few SKUs that we have stock of, you can only buy it there. Twisted, I know, because you're not getting the same margin, etc., but it's also just sitting in your warehouse, right? So think about additional ways to do it. We also did a lot of distributor and retail plays where, hey, this can only be available at TJ Maxx, and it was really more of a liquidation play for us, but it was really cool for our customers who are shoppers at a TJ Maxx or Walmart, etc., to see that the brand in a way is kind of unfolding to be something larger. And then I think we've just done a really good job with bundling and deal of the days, and a few other things too on the website.
Yeah, I mean, even now we're trying to get rid of like this inventory that's just sitting in the warehouse that we've kind of removed from the site, the last like couple hundred units, right? And it sounds like, oh, it might be a pain to get rid of, but also at the end of the day, it's great retention tactic, right? So one of the exercises that we did just now was we have a few products that are maybe expiring in the next 6 months, right? But we want to just blow these units out, right? And we're only talking a couple hundred, so being able to kind of list these out. How much inventory do we have? What are the COGS on this? What's like the ultimate lowest price that we can go after shipping, processing fees, where we can either break even or make a couple bucks, and just run promos, right? A lot of brands kind of want to stay away from like the promotions or the heavy discounts, but honestly, when you're trying to like advance the brand and you want to kind of just obviously clean up the inventory and just get through things, I think it's okay. I think it's like, one of those things where, hey, listen, get it before it's gone forever. And 40% off so that we could just clear that out, get the cash for it, and really invest it back into the brand and some of the new stuff.
Yep. And then I think moving to the areas where like we've really been understocked but didn't have the financial capital or the financial prowess to order things. I think what's been really cool that we've been doing is just really moving to this like pre-order mentality. It's not really a pre-order, but it's a ship by date. And I think this is another good stigma to break, which is like the more you push out a ship by date or the more you push out a date that people are going to get the product by, we all think that that's going to affect conversion rate negatively. But if you want to touch on maybe the positives that have come out from a pushed out ship date of 30 days, first of all, that gives you a ton of time to actually get the product and start moving it, getting to a negative cash conversion cycle. But we'll touch on that in the finance piece. But I think we've had some really cool eye openings from that.
Yeah, the first one was the two new burn products, right? We ran a pre-order just on those. We knew they were coming in around 30 days, but our retention team was pretty bullish on getting pre-orders up and running, starting to build that demand. And really the only way there's not much that goes into it. It's literally changing the add to cart button to a pre-order. It's telling your fulfillment center that, hey, listen, we don't have the inventory yet. You're getting it in 30 days. Just hold on and not batching these orders. And then really communicating the timeline in which you're going to actually start getting your tracking numbers and when you're actually going to get the product. This, I think, really built the hype around the products too, right? It's like, one, there's X amount of units that we're going to sell. If you want it now, you got to pre-order it because when it actually does launch, chances are it'll probably be out of stock by then. And so by doing this, you're generating the hype. I fully believe we probably got more sales just by doing this than anything. And to Ron's point is that we're selling through the inventory before we even get it. And I think maybe talk a little bit about payment terms and how that benefits that.
No, 100%. I think there's a few things on the finance piece that's been helpful for us, even when we had months that were unprofitable or tougher for cash flow. I think a few things that we've done is we've gone to every manufacturer and we've hounded them to the point where like, hey, listen, either you're not going to get paid or let's figure something out that makes sense, right? And I think where we've gotten to is a few cool things. Is number one, with a couple of manufacturers, we've actually told them, hey, listen, we'll pay you a couple of cents more, but give us a 30-day or net 60 or a much smaller down and then push off the rest of the payment. And honestly, nobody's going to not accept a little bit more money for that. It's when you want to save money and want terms, that's when they start pushing back, right? So that piece really, that helps from time to time. And then we've been using a lot of cool tools. There's a lot of cool credit cards out there, like a Parker or a Flex, that allows you to, without interest, put payments on a credit card for 60 days and not pay it, right? And now a lot of us are paying things through a wire transfer because it's our manufacturer. What's really cool is there's tools also out there such as Plastic and Melio and stuff that lets you pay ACH and wire transfers on a credit card. So now if you think about it, you go to a manufacturer, you're able to earn net 30, let's say, and then you go and take that payment and you put it on a credit card like a Parker or a Flex or the few others that are out there, right? Now, if you think about it, at 60 plus 30, you have 90 days to basically sell that inventory, right, before you have to pay for it. And then on top of that, if you've already started 30 days before the inventory comes on a pre-order model or a ship-buy model, you have 120 days to sell that inventory without the money leaving from you, right? So now the excuse of, oh, well, I can't make it work, or I'm revolving cash and it's not working for me, this gives you 120 days. Now, if you can't get through your initial order in 120 days, maybe you have to look at your business dynamics. You have to really understand, like, are you a really large life cycle business? Or if you're a consumer goods, then really look into your marketing. Why can't you? What's going on? Is certain things you're not pulling, certain levels you're not pulling? So I think this methodology has helped a lot for us. Even today when, we're super profitable on the first order, we're still using this methodology of negative cash conversion cycle, where as inventory comes in, we're at least trying to be able to be completely break even before we have to pay for it. When I mean by break even is we've made the money of the inventory order before the money is due. And I think it's like this weird complex of like a drop shipping model versus like, trying to get to this negative cash conversion cycle. That's really been cool to add to our business. But we've now been utilizing it during our roughest times, when we didn't have cash or just like we're really, really, really struggling, to also a time where like right now we're super cash flow positive, and things are really good. We're utilizing it in both ways. So happy to talk more on that piece. But I think another piece on finance I do want to touch is like, I think the marketing methodology of how you look at finance is also really important. Is like, I've seen like Ash and the marketing team kind of work with finance instead of being in these two silos. Even just the way we can talk about the daily P&L tracker too. Like, it's gotten down to the fundamentals of marketing is finance and finance is marketing. It's not a department versus department. You can talk a little bit about what we're doing there.
Yeah, so I think I would say going back to pre-iOS update, our metrics that we looked at was MER, right? Marketing efficiency ratio, which is spend divided by total revenue, right? And if we fell within a certain threshold, cool. If not, we got to fix something, right? Problem with that is that it doesn't tell you anything about new customer revenue, returning customer revenue, how efficient you are on acquiring a first-time customer. And so from going from MER to maybe a new customer ROAS, right? At the end of the day, you might know your numbers as well as you think you do, but a new customer ROAS doesn't really tell you much about profitability. It just tells you new customer revenue divided by spend. Moved on to the metric that we're looking at right now, contribution margin, right? It's funny that contribution margin was an accounting term at first, and now marketers are adopting this and really thinking about, okay, well, on a daily basis, how much money am I adding to the company, right? From a new customer, am I positively contributing to the business? Am I losing money? And for me, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at my Triple Whale app, there's one widget that I look at, and it's contribution margin. Am I profitable on the first order, or am I not? And if I'm not, where are things broken? Is it in Facebook? Is Google spending? Is TikTok not spending right? Where is the issue? And so working with the finance team, being able to, one, I'm tracking this stuff every hour on the hour, right? How did the last hour go? But then on a daily P&L, finance team is keeping me honest and accountable and saying, hey, like, all right, cool. Here's revenue. Here's how much you spend. Here's what the daily profit looks like. Here's what we're trending for the rest of the month. That allows me to realize, okay, cool, we're on trend. Let's keep things going. All right, trending a little bit lower. Finance team will also shoot me a message at like 9 in the morning, be like, hey, what happened yesterday? And I have to answer those questions. Like if, we overspent a little bit, we weren't as profitable as the day before. And having those checks and balances is awesome to have. Whereas before, when it was really just the three of us, it was like, I don't know, it's just one of those days, right? And then we continue operating. But now that you have a team that's like, all right, well, you got to be careful what you're spending. I think contribution margin, moving towards looking at that metric and optimizing for that. I think brands that if you are doing it and you're just looking at ROAS or MER, really focusing on new customer revenue on its own, returning customer revenue on its own, and just optimizing for both. And having goals for both is very important.
Yeah, I think one thing is if you guys are running a brand and you're looking at your P&L less than 10 times a month, I think that's far too less. I know many of us have been looking at it as like, the 15th of the month, I review how last month did. Those days, I think, are truly gone. I think at least on a weekly basis, you should be knowing where your company is at and where it's headed. And if you don't, I think you're truly kind of going to get blindsided with random things.
Even overhead. Yeah, overhead is one of those things where, as a marketer, you're not really thinking about, right? You're like, I got to get a 2x return on my Facebook ads. I don't care about anything else, right? Now I have those discussions with finance team of like, I want to use this agency for X, Y, and Z. How much is this going to increase our overhead, right? Our finance team will pull our expense report at the end of the month, and he'll be like, all right, just go through every single expense that was charged on the card, direct deposit, whatever it is, and tell me what you want to keep and what you want to remove. And there's so many things that we found that I think we cut our overhead by half just because we were spending on redundant shit.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, as you scale, you start to pile up all these whether it's Shopify fees or apps that you're paying for that you're not even using anymore. There's so many things that you can cut down on and reduce the overhead and say, okay, now where can I allocate this budget? I'm okay with spending X amount on my overhead. Where do I start investing, right? Is it, a retention agency? Is it a CRO agency? Is it a design agency? Can I hire another employee? Can I do this, do that, right? Make sure that your overhead is as optimized as possible, because for marketers, it's only going to get tougher to generate new customer profit to cover that. And then obviously your gravy is returning revenue and everything else. But keeping an eye on that, I think, was super crucial that we didn't really do before.
Yeah, I think one really cool thing that our VP of Finance did was actually, I think it was like end of last year, just canceled every card. He canceled every card that we had at Obvi. It was the worst nightmare ever. But what it forced us to do was anything we absolutely needed, we went to him and was like, hey, we need this. And he'd be like, why? And now every charge kind of had intention. Obviously, there was those little bit of hiccups of like this thing stopped running or this thing stopped running. But you realize those little hiccups are far more worth it than just letting things. I mean, we do it personally too, right? Like we have subscriptions to, like I think both my wife and I have a Netflix subscription. It makes no sense, but we have it, right? Like, but those are the things that you have to force your business to find. So yeah, I think there's a few things you should definitely go and try and do. I want to pivot to another struggle that's been actually something that's been tougher for us to navigate because we don't come from that space, which is Walmart. We launched nationwide to Walmart. I definitely want you to touch on especially what some of the changes we made. But let me set the stage here for you guys. We're a D2C brand. And 4 years into the brand, we get to go to Bentonville, pitch Walmart on bringing on our line of a collagen fat burner and our collagen powders. And they call us back pretty much 3 months later saying, we're going to roll you guys out nationwide. obviously first reaction is like, this is insane. This is gonna completely change the way we look at our business, everything. And I think there's really two cool things that came out of Walmart. One was a deep learning on our collagen side, which we'll get into, and then one was like, wow, there's something in our collagenic burn that's been so not hidden, but it's been like something that we realized was such a big part of the brand and an identity to the brand that we had to flourish more. But let's talk about maybe what happened on the powder side, which is maybe not what we expected.
Yeah. So our powders line is pretty much a bunch of different flavors. And at the time, we had maybe 5 or 6 cereal flavors. They took 2 of the cereal flavors, our fruity cereal and our cocoa cereal. And those were some of our best sellers. But what they didn't do is they didn't take an unflavor from us. Now, if you're going into Walmart and you see our product for the first time sitting next to Vital Proteins unflavored, which one are you going to take? The one you see, every week and Jennifer Aniston taking? Or are you going to take our flavored stuff that you don't even know what it tastes like? We got crushed. That was a huge learning experience for us. And secondly, we over-formulated the product, like I said earlier. Our price points just didn't make sense. Our consumer was not a high-price shopper to begin with. And I don't know why we thought we could go. We thought we could go into Walmart and be a premium product. But that's just not us and never has been. Thankfully, the other SKU that they took, our collagenic burn, is probably the fastest selling fat burner in the country now. We have completely destroyed Hydroxycut in Walmart, Rite Aid, all of our other retailers. And that was kind of the silver lining in all of this, because we realized that our consumers actually really want to be on this weight loss track, and they're not just here for the collagen. They're here for the collagen and the functional supplements. So what we did was we started expanding on that burn line, and it was a home run from day one. And now we have some other things coming out to Walmart, like a carb blocker, a detox, things that our consumers actually want. And the other thing is Walmart picked up our on flavor, which is going to replace our 2 flavored products, and we reformulated it to be at the price point we know we can sell it at and the price point that our consumers want it at. So, we're just super excited about that reset coming in, August?
Yep, August. I think that last point is super important too, the price point piece. Another thing that I think we just kind of blindly assumed was we're going to go in at this $24.98 price point, while all the other collagens sit between $18.98 up to $22, $23.98. And we were like, yeah, they're definitely going to pick ours. And I think it was like the first few weeks, I remember we remember looking at the data, and it was like we were selling less than a half a unit per store per week. And it was like, holy shit, maybe the stores haven't stocked this product. So for like a few weeks, we were like under this like fallacy of the stores haven't stocked the product. There's no way this is possible. And then like 12 weeks later, when you probably assume the stores have stocked the product, the numbers didn't change. And I think one of the first things we were told by Walmart was like, why don't you guys do a rollback, right? Bring the price down. And we brought it down to what, $19.98, right? And we doubled or maybe even tripled velocities. And you realize like the sensitivities of these things, these are things you can't go and assume. You can't just think that what you're doing online or what you believe the pricing can be is just what it's going to sell at. And this was just like, I think this whole Walmart experience, again, we have a great silver lining. We have a really, really great product that's working, but everything else was just such a deep learning around not assuming. And I think that's been a big theme in this last year and a half for us in general as well. But any other Walmart pieces that you want to add to?
Yeah, it made my life really difficult. What we ended up seeing was, so the top selling product is the burn, right? On the website, it's $39.99. In Walmart, it's $19.99. And when we launched, as a good partner to Walmart, sent out email campaigns, SMS, put a banner on the website, included, now available in Walmart and our store locators, every single email flow to obviously push initial traffic to Walmart. Great for Walmart, bad for D2C, because all of our customers now realize they can get their favorite product for 50% off in store. And what ended up happening was returning revenue started to decrease at the same time that Walmart revenue was increasing. Problem is that we have worse margins at Walmart than we do online. And so the trade-off wasn't great. And so starting to lose money on D2C. For new customer acquisition, you would see an ad for obviously the burn. You come to the landing page. If you don't buy right away, you're now in that consideration, phase of things. You might get an email flow. You're in the welcome flow now. You'll start seeing ads. We were running ads for Walmart, so you might start seeing Walmart everywhere. You might get email saying, "Oh, it's available in Walmart," and now we get added to the grocery list for 50% off. And my conversion rate is dropping on the website. My CAC is increasing. No longer first order profitable. I'm dropping spend because it's not profitable. And so you start to see just revenue decline. Ad spend is declining. And it's this vicious cycle, because in order to generate demand, you have to run ads. You have to market. And if we can't run ads, Walmart's not going to generate enough awareness. They're going to start to slow down. They're going to look at us like, what the hell's going on? Finance team is looking at me like, what the hell's going on? And it becomes this like vicious cycle that nobody prepared us for. And now when I talk to founders who have gone into retail, the first thing they do is putting in a specific SKU into Walmart that's different from online. Something that's similar but different so that you can differentiate. And so what we did is, instead of doing this proactively, we did it, after the fact, and we launched a V2 of our burn product, which was like the elite version, higher price point, a little bit more heavily clinical studies, yeah. So it was overall a better product. So we gave Walmart our top seller, which is affordable to the Walmart consumer. But then now on my top of funnel ads and what I'm running, on a day-to-day basis, it's a completely different product that you can't get in store, and you can only get it online. And that's when you start to see things kind of pick back up. You're going back to first order profitable. Conversion rate has increased. We also, unfortunately, had to remove a lot of our Walmart messaging from all of our emails, SMS, store locator. But funny enough none of that mattered, because I was able to spend more on Facebook. We started seeing Walmart numbers go up, because people were seeing this $49.99 price point. Oh, and then they're seeing the V1 of it in Walmart at almost half the price, and they're like, you know what? Let me pick this up instead. And so all ships were pretty much rising because we fixed this problem. And honestly, I'm glad it only took us 4 months, because some of the problems that we faced from before, what we were talking about, took us years to figure out.
Right.
And so now it's like, anytime there's a little bit of a sense of red flags, it's like, all right, cool, stop everything what we're doing, figure it out, and game plan that and strategize.
Perfect. No, then you nailed it. Before we move on from Walmart, I know you talked about on your panel, before I touch a little bit about even what you did on the packaging and branding, and one, again, assumption, two, then actual, what we learned and then what we did there.
Yeah. So I think we nailed the burn packaging. The data spoke for itself, but something that we did right before we got into Walmart was a little bit of a refresh, because obviously our direct-to-consumer packaging is accompanied by this really beautiful product page that's going to explain what the product is, what it does, some below-the-fold content, some supporting images. In retail, you obviously don't have that. So we wanted to put a lot of the value propositions on the front of the panel. But what we did, and I think where we made the mistake, is we tried to make it look very luxurious and like almost a high-quality product that speaks to that price point. And honestly, we shouldn't have done that. Now that we've got this unflavored coming back in, we've taken a lot of the elements from our original packaging that everybody loves so much, added the value proposition so it's retail compatible, and now we believe that this is going to do a lot better.
It's I think to wrap up the kind of the retail piece of this, right? I think one thing I will say is, I think as brands, we're trained to react to retail a certain way. One is this like overarching excitement for the opportunity, right? And then you kind of move towards like, oh shit, how am I going to make this work, right? And then you kind of go all in, right? If you're going to try to make it work, you plaster on your website, your communication, you're telling everyone to go there, etc. And you don't realize the impact it's going to have to your core business. And I think it's like, no matter how many people tell you this, you kind of just have to go through it. So this is one of those things, I think it's like, it's good you guys can hear from us. I'm sure you've heard it from others, and you'll probably keep hearing it from many more people. But something like this, you kind of just have to go through as a brand. So it's important to kind of just call that piece out. Cool. I think some of the things that I think would be good to cover before we wrap up, it is just in terms of like even team morale and like your personal guys' morale, just going through these rough patches. I know each of us kind of dealt with it differently, but so much of being a founder or a brand builder or being in these seats of building, no one talks about the personal stuff too. And I think I just want to touch on that because, and then get each of your guys' experiences of how you dealt with, because some of us are going through the rough times now, some of us have gone through it, etc. But there's a part of dealing with it and how you cope with it. So maybe if you want to start, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, when it hit me the most was when we saw CAC triple overnight, right? This is post-iOS update. When things are going really well on Meta, you're on the top of the world, your mood is amazing, you're having the best day of your life, and then you have one shit day, and it's like, all right, stay away from me. And so I think for me, it was, I knew I wasn't doing as much as I could have, but I was trying to make what was working continue to work in an era that things simply just would not continue to work. And so I got frustrated with myself. Am I even the right person for the job to continue this, running the ad account or bringing us back into the green? I remember calling these guys into the conference room, and I sat them down. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Either, find somebody to replace me, or let's hire an agency and have them figure it out. I think getting to that moment, it was really affecting my mental health. It was a lot of anxiety around like, this is our money, like that we, put in together. I'm letting these guys down. How do I become better or find somebody better to do it? And so after, we kind of worked with a few agencies, saw what they were doing. I was able to learn from them. I hopped on Twitter and started talking with a lot of other media buyers. I think the biggest thing is just networking, right? Like they say, your network is your net worth. And honestly, I've learned a lot from so many people that are even in this room right now. It's, just being able to collaborate and just talk through ideas. Talking about creative production. There are brands out there pumping out 50 to 100 creatives a week, and we were doing 5 a month. I was embarrassed to even say that, right? And I think just being able to talk to others, see what they've been through. There's always that negative stigma of like, oh, I have to put up this front of like things are going well always. We're sitting here on the stage today for an hour talking about how shit hit the fan, and just being open about it. And hopefully some of those learnings you guys can kind of take and implement. But going up to somebody and be like, hey, like I'm struggling with this. What do I do? What have you done? What have you seen that's worked? And honestly, those conversations have helped turn the business around. Takes time, but it did happen. What about you, Ankit?
Yeah. Similar. I think when the company just wasn't performing well, I think it hits everybody in a different place. For me, it was the entire timeline of our company. My packaging was crushing. And then when things started not doing well, you start second guessing yourself. And when we went into, Walmart and the powders weren't performing, it's like, okay, I'm looking for every rhyme and reason for it not performing other than the packaging. And sometimes you feel a little bit attacked. But you need to understand that, co-founders or whoever's giving you those critiques, they're not attacking you. They're just trying to kind of open your eyes to there are other possibilities here. You're not going to get it right every time. You're just not. And that doesn't mean that you're you're not the right person for the job. That just means that you're growing still. And I mean, we're still, a couple kids that we're not from this industry. Every year we're growing, and the industry is changing so heavily. The landscape changes. So it's one of those things where you're not going to get it right every time, but you have to keep adapting. So if you just sit still, you might as well be moving backwards, because it's not helping anybody. So I think one thing we did learn is nothing is for certain. My packaging is not going to crush every single time, and that's okay. But it's one of those things. It was a great learning lesson. I think we're a lot easier on each other. We're not attacking each other all the time. But yeah, when you face that adversity for the first time, it's tough.
I think for me, it was just felt like a walking imposter syndrome at all times. Like I'd walk, we're in office. We don't believe in like remote culture too much. So we're in office every day. And just walking into the office and being like, damn, am I the right leader? Should I even be here? Looking at our employees and being like, times are tough, is tough conversations to have with yourself. And then you got to go home and you still have to represent yourself as a father, a husband, etc. And you're like, damn, this is tricky things to kind of deal with. And I think when it hit me was like, there were times where I didn't want to go into work. That I just didn't want to deal with it, or like have those tough conversations. And I think that's when you become you can use it easily, as a mode to like find the right tools, the right people to really find the next path to success. And I think, again, it's one of those things I think everyone has to go through, because knowing that how it feels, you never want to be there again. And so you become so much better in not making those mistakes again, which is really, really powerful. Cool. So I think to wrap up, what we do at Chew on This is we give everybody one thing to chew on. And today there's 3 of us up here. So I think if we want to go from starting with you, Ash, just give everyone one thing to chew on from this episode, or just in general.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is probably the one thing around creative diversity. Go into, or if you're running the ad account or somebody else is running it, go in there and literally plot on a graph where each creative style fits, right? For those who maybe are just joining us now, but create a quadrant, right? Top is going to be static ads, so you're going to have high quality static ads, low quality static ads, high quality video ads, low quality video ads, and map out where your creatives are at, and find out where you're over indexing and not doing enough of, and start filling it up. Creative diversity is what Meta is pushing. No 2 ads in your ad account should ever look the same. Continue to expand on design styles, messaging, as much as humanly possible. And I promise you performance will be a lot better. So do that.
For me, it's don't be afraid to break the rules, and tell your creative teams, cool, you went to design school, but I think this day and age, none of that really matters. Just like what Barry Hott always says, ugly ads always work. Don't be afraid to rebrand, refresh, and just look yourself in the mirror. Sometimes you need to change to keep things moving.
I think one thing from my end is really look at your financial structure. I think if you're sending out wires, like for manufacturing or anything but payroll, I think there's always a better way to pay that. I think go back to every manufacturer, see if you pay them 50 cents more or a dollar more, what are they going to give you, versus also figuring out a plan to getting to net terms, right? Even if they can't give it to you today, what do you need to do to get there? If they can't give you a plan, start looking for a new manufacturer. And then lastly, I think just in terms of when it comes to financial pieces, is like really, really having a good handle on the costs that you do have. The little things that are, $50 or under or $200 under, they really add up. And so to go down to a good cost-cutting exercise. Chew on that.
If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.